Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video, I'll be going through the Collingwood team preview for 2024 in AFL Fantasy, going through who I think will be the main sort of talking points, especially just being like Nick Dacos. I don't think it will be that one of a major team preview, as they haven't really had any major players of value, to be honest with you. They haven't drafted anyone that I really see making too much of an impact. And sort of all their players are, most of their players that we're talking about here are sort of that rookie priced players in McRae, Ryan, Allen, and then we'll also touch on the more expensive, obviously, Nick Dacos, and also I think Lipinski deserves a mention, and that's more just so because he has forward status. But before we get into this video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into this video. So as you can see here, I have all of the fantasy stat center on the Collingwood side, and the first name is Nick Dacos currently in my side, and that's more just so a placeholder, because obviously I don't want to, at the moment, I don't want to have to see his round one performance of like a 140, 150 and then go, I need Nick Dacos, and then have to rejig my side massively to get him. So I just want to sort of have him placed down there, and if he does really badly in preseason, picks up an injury or something like that preseason or round zero, I will jump off him and probably jump to a Wangadi Malira, I think is the one that I'll probably jump to, which will open up the forward line a little bit. I believe that's where I'll go with that. But Nick Dacos is currently a placeholder on my side, average of 109 on the year, 108.8 for the year, last 3 of 73, last 5 of 92. That is heavily marked by that 37 game against the Hawks, where he did get injured after, if I look here quickly at his stuff here, we go to 2023, and then we go to that game. He had 60% time on ground for a 37. He was really struggling. He came into the game, I'm pretty sure, with a knock, and then he just got injured as well, and then tried to run it out, and then got further injured as well. So if you take that game out, that injury game, he ends up averaging 112.5 for the year. So already looking at that, there's almost 4 points of upside there, and there could be some progression as he moves into the midfield. If we look at his, if we look at DFS, and then we go to his summary, and I'll use this site heavily for the Collingwood preview, because they have a lot of guys that have played a lot of VFL. So if we go to Dacos here, and we go to Dacos down here, we look at his stats here. He had, in that game here, where is it? Let me grab it up. It would be round 21 against the Hawks, 30% CBAs, 60% time on ground for a 37. And yeah, he was playing more behind. It looks like they were trying to maneuver him around from that McGuinness tag, and it just didn't really work terribly well. But you can see here when he returned, he went 100 in the, was that the qualifier, and then 110 in the grand final as well. So there is definitely potential value there, and his points per minute is obviously can be ridiculous, but still over 1 point per minute is a pretty good output for him. And you can see here, sort of even in those sort of games that he was having earlier in the season, you can see these 90 odd scores with less than 1 point per minute, and he went 1 and 1.07 in the final series. So I reckon that shows that there is massive, and you can just see that points per minute were massively down in that game, and he was spending a lot of time on the bench and a lot of time just trying to run around from the tag, as he had, I think, a knee injury, as well as it was obviously a knee injury, I'm pretty sure, was it? And then also I think he copped something in the ribs as well in that game, as he was carrying a lot. He was battered and bruised basically in that game against the Hawks. They got him good early, and that sort of stopped Dacos having a massive impact. But I do think there is definitely value there. I do think he could push a 116, 117 in the midfield. So it's just a wonder of, is there going to be more value? And this is something that I probably should almost work out statistically with sort of like projections and stuff like that. Is there more value going Nick Dacos and having that captaincy option, even though he's got the McGuinness potential tag, and then also the bye round in round 5, I think it is. They share it with the Swans, so there's a worry with Brodie Grundy. But if you have good, I think it was JD was mentioning this, and although it is Supercoach he was referring to, it does make sense with fantasy. If you do have two bigger guys on the buys in that round, for instance, in this, say, Dacos and Grundy, I think they have the same buy round, then it's feasible to have them both in the starting side, but it's not as good if you have, for instance, they've made the mention of, I believe it is Miller and Green share the buy round, and trying to take two from the same line is a lot harder. So I don't think him having the buy round is too influential. If he does average, he could easily average 10 more than the next best defender, as we expect to see a regression in Sicily. And Stewart, I think, I only averaged, if I go here quickly to my team actually at the moment, which is a sneak preview, Stewart only averaged 96. If we look at all, I can actually do it in the stats center here. If we look at all positions defenders, you'll see that the averages here, he's already got four or so on Sicily, then you got Sinclair, and then you got Ryan all there, but he's already gapping these guys by quite a lot, and we expect to see an improvement on Dacos and a regression from Sicily, and we're also expecting potentially a regression on Sinclair, or at least a regression early on Sinclair before he has, I believe, a massive marble patch as well. So that even furthers the point of Nick Dacos is going to be so far and away ahead of the defenders, so you can almost pick him even though he'll have a rough patch round 4, round 5. So I've also heard talk of people maybe potentially trading him out and then trading him back in, but I think if you're gonna hold have Nick Dacos for round 1, you got to hold him through the whole season unless he has that major injury that he had last year. As I think he could go 115, and if he goes 115, 8 points of upside as I'm already basically a D1 will be massive. So that is the reasons for Nick Dacos, and we've seen he does have that natural progression of 22 points upside. So I think he could go bigger in the next year as he moves to more full mid-time role. If we look here and we look at the CBAs for Collingwood, and we go to Collingwood here, you'll see, where is Nick Dacos? 42%, and you can see sort of in the back half of the year, 15 to 20, he did really well. And if we look at 15 to 20 here, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20, he did not the greatest against Port and against Carlton, but those were two top 5 teams. So two of the sort of toughest matchups out, aside from the tag against the Hawks that he had to go through. And then you can even see it, he did really well with 74% against the Brisbane Lions, another good side. So just looking at this here, and you can just see, I think he will have another 20 to 25% potential upside with CBAs, which could massively improve his overall average. If we look here at these games, Geelong, didn't he go massive against Geelong in round 1? You can see him with 0 CBAs. He's one of those guys that doesn't probably need necessarily 0 CBAs to go 100 plus, but I think the CBAs do allow him to go an extra 10 or so on top of that. I just want to see, when was the Sydney matchup? Round 8 against the Swans. He ended up going in 84, and the Swans won't have their tagger anymore. So you can almost add another 10 to 15 points of upside probably off the Swans game, which is another about point of upside. So I do think you will see teams, different teams have sort of taggers in a sense. I think the Swans will lose their designated hard tagger in obviously Ryan Clark, who got delisted. I think you will see potentially North have a tagger, and I think it was Eddie Ford against Sicily. That could potentially work, but I don't think they'll do it against Nick Dacos. So I think the only team you really have to worry about is the Hawks, and I think Nick Dacos, that is potentially, if you look at it, if he's not injured in that Hawks game, I still think he goes like 80. And I think outside of that, if he goes like 140, 150 in the first game, there's no way that I'm not picking him, just because I think there's going to be value there. So I've almost spent 10 minutes on Nick Dacos. But yeah, I just think that Nick Dacos is going to be a massive talking point. And I think just to not sort of lose all your preseason work with your teams and your research, I think you just got to put a line in the sand for Nick Dacos almost points-wise, as I don't think it will be role-wise. We know his role. I think it will just be points-wise. What's he going to... If he gets a 130, are you going to go for him, or 120? I think my line's probably going to be a 125 or somewhere around that, as I think he does need to go a little bit above his previous 2023 average, but I don't think he needs to go too far above, as I don't think the McGuinness tag is going to impact him as much as a lot of people are saying. I think it was massively banged up in the previous games, as you can see with the 86 and 97, that the McGuinness tag sort of compounded that, and they got a couple of bumps on him early that sort of just made him pretty much, I think he was about 80% fit when that game actually happened. So I think a lot of people are looking potentially into that tag over a little bit more, and I probably do need to do a little bit of research on the McGuinness tags and who we went to each week, because that could be, and look into what actually happened. But I think that there is a massive, I think a lot of people are looking over it too much and thinking that he's going to limit Nick Dacos to another 40, which I don't think will happen. I think it'll be an 85, 90 that he'll limit him to. And I think he could easily go 650, 700 points in the first sort of 5 weeks before, including the McGuinness tag week before his bye. And if he's done that, he'll be over $1 million. What's he at now? He is priced currently, if we go back to here, he's currently priced at 982. He'll be 1.05 probably if he does that, and 1.05 will be basically impossible to get without a massive, basically combining Heath Chapman and Zach Williams at max price, because they'll both have to go to probably 700k to get towards that. So yeah, I do think that Nick Dacos could almost become ungettable without sacrificing a massive mid-price or something like that. So that's why he is sort of, even with the buy and the tag potential, he is sitting there at the moment. Next guy I think is Lipinski. I think the best way to look up Lipinski is actually, because if you look here, Lipinski 3%, really you can't gain much research out of that. So I think the best way to look at Lipinski, and I'm pretty sure from memory he did have a really good VFL year, so I'm pretty sure we'll be able to see it in this player summary here. You'll see Lipinski, averaged 66 fantasy points last year, and in 2022 averaged 80 in the 25 games. So there is massive upside there if he gets onto the pitch. But I think that the only downside for me with Lipinski is the fact that we do have the likes of Finlay McRae coming through that I think will get the role rather than Lipinski, or the better fantasy inducive role. So I'm just wondering what's going to happen there. And if you look at here, it's back to, he hasn't actually played any VFL footy since 2021. But even then, you can see a 143, a 74, and a 116, and then 144. So you can see if he does play in the twos, he massively overperforms. Yeah, so he averages somewhere close to a 110 in the VFL, something like that. So yeah, massively overperforms that. So he doesn't deserve to be in the twos. And I'm just trying to figure out, and you can see here with the CBAs, the one game that he had decent CBAs, he went 107, 25% for a 76, 10, 16, 42% for a 50, and that's not the greatest. That was for Collingwood against Port in 2022, and then a 61% for a 127. So I think if he generally gets that role, he can average 85 or so as a 45% midfielder, which will be plus 19, and that's pretty much around the range that you're looking for as a forward. I don't think, like we say with defenders and midfielders and the ruckman, we want as a mid-pricer around that 20, 25, 30 sort of upside, and trying to find those 25 to 30s. But I think as a forward, we're not sort of looking as much of an upside, just because the forward line is so weak. And that almost lends itself to going for those guns and rookies in the forward line, because we do realise that the rookies are going to go plus 30, plus 40 on their actual price. I mean, look at just Harley Reid. I'm pretty sure is priced at, let me just quickly look this up. He's priced at 33, Harley Reid, and 33.2, and we're expecting, with the now half-back role and midfield time, I'm expecting him to average in the 70s, which is plus 40 odd on his base price, basically. So it leans more to rookies, given that there's no real designated mid prices in the or there's a lot of sort of hesitancy with the mid-price, and we'll go through that with the when we go to the mid-price videos in the coming weeks once we get through these. But Lipinski is one that you could look at just because he's got the forward status. If he didn't have forward status, I don't think you'd look at him at all, because he is priced around about that same. He's priced more than like Wardlaw, Sheldrick, Dow. There's a lot of mid prices around that 500 to 600k that I'd be more enticing to me than Lipinski, but priced at 70 at the moment. So he's even priced at 70. He's not priced at 66. So that's probably encountered his finals game, hasn't it? Where he didn't do the best. Yeah, 59 and a 64, and also a 43 in the finals, I believe. All those 3 games have bumped him down to a 66 for the season, even though he went 70 in the regular season. So I wouldn't be looking at Lipinski now as much, given that he's priced at 70. Max, I can see him doing if he gets the roll as 85, and I don't think he even gets the roll. I think I'd be more inclined to go, like I've been saying in previous videos, I think I've said this a lot in the Essendon video, is that I'd be more inclined to go with the players that are another 20, 30 down on average, like a McRae, because he is a lot easier to go from what McRae is priced at about 34. For him to go to a 56 is a lot easier than that is honestly just a simple roll change, or simply just getting on the park, comparatively to Lipinski, who has to go, for him to get the same upside, he'd have to go 92. And if we look at Collingwood, and we look at their average in general, that would be a top 3 player at Collingwood. And you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He is currently the 12th highest average. So he'd have to jump like 10 other guys to get ahead of him. And you've got full-time midfielders in Degoe, Mitchell, also Dacos, and somewhat of Pendlebury. And then also you've got Jack Crisp as well, and still Sidebottom, who's mostly, I think, on the wing. But you got all those guys who are ahead of him already, and he's got to somehow jump them. I just don't think it's that viable. Whereas you've got guys like Finn McRae, who are priced at 34, even though it says 47 average, which we'll get to in a second, who just need to go up. You can see here, he just need to go up to a 56, which is jumping basically all the key position players in the side of Frampton, McStay, who's not going to be there anyway. Hoskin Elliott sort of plays as a as a sort of, it seems like he plays almost as a key position. And then you got Cox as well, and Myercheck as well there, and Howe as well, who he could easily jump ahead of even Darcy Moore at 63 and get in sort of that 65 range McRae. And that would be plus 30 something, and that's I can easily see him doing that. So we'll move on to McRae itself, and he had 1 game for a 47. If we quickly just open that, get rid of that, and then look at it here. If we go to 2023, you'll see 1 game for a 47, and that was on 37% time on ground, where he just laid 8 tackles and 7 handballs for a 47. I'm pretty sure, was he sub in that game? If we go here to AFL.com, and then we go to, not VFL, we go to that one, Toyota, and then 2023, and it would be this round. I just want to see the team list, because I'm pretty sure he would be sub. Yeah, he was sub in that game, so yeah. One to look out for, because I think he could take the sort of Taylor Adams role, which Taylor Adams, I think, what average 70 was it? If we look here and just look quickly, I think Taylor Adams was 70. Let's just look. What was Adams? 77. So even that, Adams averaging 77. Even if he did 70, that would be massive and well overachieving what I think he can do. But he just needs to average 65 even, and that's well within the range of what we need from a mid-pricer, especially because he's sort of battling it out with he's in the same sort of range as Devon Robinson for me at the moment in that sort of price bracket. So it'll be just interesting to see how he goes. But if we now move on to McRae and then go Finlay McRae here, I think you'll see very similar to Lipinski in, look at that VFL numbers here. Yes, he did have a 27 in the AFL against Carlton, and then an 18, but these are sub games. You can see here, sub. This was 65% time on ground for 27. Don't know what he was doing there. But you can even see previously in the AFL, he's gone 71, 57, 71, 54. So he's done it before, and this was 2021. So he's grown a couple years in the AFL. You can see sub-performance here, sub-performance here. So if you actually look at his AFL averages, it looks shocking. 42, 22.5, and then a 47. But if you actually look at the numbers, he had like 3 or 4 sub games there, you can see. Whereas when he actually goes into the VFL, 92, 87, 94, 101, 76, 80, 80, what's his lowest score? His lowest score looks to be a 63 in the 57 in the VFL. So he's got 150 score and about 60 scores in about, I would say that's probably 40 or so VFL games, 45 VFL games. And then the rest of them are 80s, 90s, 100s with a top out of a 1, 2, 4, it looks, 1, 3, 3 I can see. So yeah, a top out of 1, 3, 3. So it does show that he's got the ceiling. Obviously that is the VFL, but you can just see the scoring there is massive, and he only needs to average, what did we say, 65 in the AFL. And as a forward, that would be huge, especially priced at basically a top-end rookie. So yeah, I really like the look of McRae. I probably need to talk to some Collingwood people about where they see him playing, because I think if he gets the role of just a 20-30%, you can even see here in that one game, 24% CBAs and 37% time on ground. If he gets a 20 to 30%, you can see here as well, 2021, 30% CBA, 56% time on ground for a 43. So that was 2 years, well, almost 3 years ago now, where he was averaging 43 in his rookie year with about the same CBAs that we want. And so I reckon he can do 20%, like 20 points upside on that. So I think there is a role for him to easily average 65. And I think even if you have him just F5 or so, that is sort of above Harley, and Harley will obviously jump him, in my opinion, quickly, because Harley's going to get that role that is going to get him 70s and 80s. But he's going to be sort of that F5, F6 sort of forward that you just have, and you can almost take a punt on in the bye rounds. Yes, he does have a bye, but you can just put Sean Manor on for him in the byes, as it'll be an easy swap out there. But he could easily be a guy that just produces a 100 or an 80 in the bye rounds that he is playing in, and easily be fieldable when you've got guys off, when you've got premiums off. And so yeah, I think he will be huge, and he also has the round 0 that we get to look at him, which will be huge to see his role, because if he's getting 40% CBAs in round 0, then you almost have to pick him up, just because if he gets a 40% CBA, I don't see him dropping anything less than about a 65, and if he drops to 65, he's already going to go up like 20k or something like that, and then you're going to have, obviously the price changes work slightly differently given it's over 2 rounds, but he could easily jump, by the end of round 1, he could easily jump 60, 70k, and yes, he does have the early buy, but I think he could easily, by the time his buy rolls around, he could be 500k by the time that happens, and then you just combine him with one of the rookies on the bench, honestly, and you can almost get to like a Caleb Daniel or something like that very, very quickly. So you can almost jump him very, very quickly up to an underpriced premium in the forward line and just run with that. So that's basically my thoughts on McRae. Then we go down a little bit to these sort of more lesser known guys, and you've got Jacob Ryan. So I think the best way to look at these guys now that they haven't played sort of AFL, and we don't really have can't really use Footy Wire as much as Ryan's only played 1 game, and you'll see also, I think, is it Edward Allen's, do we have another guy here? I thought we had another, yeah, we've got Edward Allen, who didn't actually play. They played VFL stuff, but they're some guys that we've looked at a lot. So let's look at, is it that way? Yeah, that way. Jacob Ryan here, and we'll just look at his VFL stats, because I think this will show VFL. But you can even see 29% time on ground for a 19, so there is room for improvement there. And you see with the VFL, he's gone 71, 48, 73, 85, 57, so a low of a 49 in the VFL, it looks like. And I don't know what that average is particularly, but it looks pretty good for around about that sort of 70, 75. And he's going to be priced at 200k, which is, I believe, like 22.1. So if he's priced at 22.1, you could literally just put him on the bench at sort of that D8 role, and then just have him sort of making cash very, very quickly, given he's got the early buy. He could put out a 60 in round 0 and almost have his break even covered for the first 2 rounds, and then just almost be making cash solely in round 1 in that game. I think they play the Swans in round 1, where he could put up another 50. He could easily gain cash very, very quickly, get to a 400k, and then just trade him out for another 200k, 220k guy that's already debuted and got that negative break even. And then, yeah, you move on from there. But I like the look of Jacob Ryan, and I just don't know if he necessarily gets into the starting side round 1. I don't think so. I think that there would have to be some injuries. I think that's the reason why he got into the side, with some good VFL, obviously, some good VFL performances. But I think there was some injuries from memory, or some rejigging around with, I think, was this around the time that Howe went forward? I think Howe was playing potentially forward, so he sort of swapped in there and went into the back line as Howe went forward. But I do like the prospects of Jacob Ryan, but would need to talk more to the Collingwood supporters to see where they see him playing. But I think you can just sort of look at round 0. If he's playing and does well, then you just swap him in, because I think he does have a good future there. Then we go to the last guy, which is Edward Allen. And this is another guy that I think could play. But I think it would be dependent on sort of Lipinski and also McRae, whether he actually does play. So obviously didn't play in the AFL in his first year, but you can sort of see him starting to pump out those scores in the VFL. He does have a 29 here against Sydney in the VFL. Don't know what happened there. But he did play the next week, so not an injury concern there, but just something odd that he's put out a 29, which is 14 points lower than his lowest. But you can see this good back into the year: 69, 76, 80, 70, 59, 55, 59, 79. So that was a good back 7 games of averaging close to, I would say, 65 to 70. And he's going to be priced at, we said with Jacob Ryan that he was priced at 22, which is the 200k marker. So priced at 22, I could see him going over that if he gets the right role, but I don't think he's sort of in that best. I think he's just outside of that best 25 or so for the Magpies at the moment. I think he's sort of that 25 to 30 range. So he'd need an injury or two just to get into that midfield, as that midfield's pretty stacked with Dacos, DeGoey, Pendlebury, McRae's probably ahead of him, Lipinski's probably ahead of him. But I do think he's sort of that 7th or so midfielder. I'm probably missing some midfielders. If we look here at the midfielders, you got Dacos, Josh is gonna be on the wing. You got Mitchell, who I'm missing, Pendlebury, DeGoey, Crisp as well. Stuyvesant's, I think, a winger, but maybe some CBAs. Let me look at their actual CBAs if it will let me get to them. Here we go. If it will let me get to the CBAs here, you'll see with Collingwood and what I'm sort of talking about. You got DeGoey, Pendlebury, Mitchell, Dacos, Adams, which needs to be replaced, but we expect that to be replaced by McRae or Lipinski, depending on who gets the role there. And then you got no one else really getting any CBAs of note. Yeah, Sidebottom was a winger, etc. It looks like here with 2% CBAs, wing, half, back row. But yeah, that pretty much sums up the whole Collingwood preview, I reckon. And basically, it just depends on what happens in round 0 for a lot of the guys. Nick Dacos, you got to put a line on whether you want him. And then you got guys like we were talking about Lipinski. I don't think he's going to be as valued, priced at 70, given that there's guys like James Jordan who have James Jordan, McRae, Devon Robertson, Cam McKenzie, and also Harley Reid as well, who are going to be all priced around that. I mean, he's priced the same as like Zach Fisher, and Zach Fisher definitely will have that halfback role if he gets in, or is fit. So I think that there's just better options than Lipinski. Then we talked about Finlay McRae, and he just needs to get AFL games. And then also their two rookies from last year in Ryan and Allen priced at 200k both. So I'm looking at them too and thinking they could easily go above that if they just get games, and we'll have to see in round 0 if that's the case. So yeah, it's a max. Collingwood's just all about round 0 and the roles of their lower price guys. But anyway, that is the video, and I'll see you guys in the next preview, which will be Carlton, and that I think they will have sort of a similar timeline with them, with all focusing on round 0 and a couple of rookie priced guys. But anyway, that's the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.